Let's talk about Hitler.
That'll make sense later.
I'm immaculately conceived.
I don't know what to do.
I swear I'm not stupid.
Take it or leave it. Sometimes you just want to leave it.
If I gotta borrow my mom's underwear, I'm borrowing her underwear.
You just, yeah.
Misa likes the Jar Jar Binks.
I'm not gonna edit it out.
Oh no.
I don't know. Like I think I'm just pretty great. Just staying on the
Sucks to
planet.
suck.
Why are you saying it with a question mark?
Clap, bitch.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Action.
And we're live. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is Why Are You Yelling? Welcome back to another F1 race review. We are here to talk about round 7 of the 2025 Formula One season. We just watched this morning. We're recording same day.
We did it.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't super early, but
No.
it still, I was very tired during it.
It wasn't super early, but I got the time wrong, so I was like an hour behind. But I didn't get on my phone, so I knew nothing. So it was basically like watching it live almost.
Yeah. So we are talking about, of course, bear with me, the AWS Grand Premio del Made in Italy e del Emilia-Romagna, which is the Imola Grand Prix.
Yes.
The track was the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Dino Ferrari.
There we go.
I got through it.
She did it.
That was the most American pronunciation of all the Italian words.
We're American. Nobody gets mad at anybody but us when we pronounce. Like, somebody could pronounce anything wrong, and they're like, well, that's just their accent. But when we do it, we're just stupid. It's just our accent.
Listen, when Davide Valsecchi on F1 TV just gets so excited and his real strong Italian accent comes through,
Yeah.
it's so cute. I think it's great.
It has grown on me at first. I think sometimes because my energy level was very low and his energy level would be super high, and I'm like, holy shit. But now, like, I love it. It's so funny.
He's so enthusiastic.
He is. I love it.
It's like the purest form to me. Because, people can get very caught up and very serious about Formula One and racing and strategy and all this stuff. And, and it's like at the end of the day, like, bro, we're having fun here. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun for everybody involved. And he's just so, like, pure, like, just loves it. And it comes through in anytime he talks about it. And and part of it could just be that it's so loud out on the areas where they're doing the broadcast from that he is just loud. So it could just be loudness.
Maybe. I don't know. I like the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
That's why I love Alex Jakes and all. Like, they're just fun. Like, DC, like, I think he gets really, and so does Joy. Joyland's like the middle one. He has high energy, but he's like, if all three of them were to have that energy, it'd be chaos. So he definitely, there's balance there. But yeah, so our podium for this race, we had Max Verstappen, then Lando Norris, and Oscar Piastri, which was freaking crazy. Max is in a league of his own. It's insane. So that leaves our constructor standings. McLaren is still 1 with 279 points. Mercedes is 2nd with 147. Red Bull is 3rd with 131. Ferrari is 4th with 114. Williams is 5th with 51. Haas is 6th with 20. Aston Martin is 7th with 14. Racing Bulls is 8th with 10. Alpine is 9th with 7 points. And Kick Sauber is 10th with 6. So
You said 10th twice.
did I say 10? Or no, I said Racing Bulls is 8th with 10 points.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what I said.
That may have been what you said, but I'm like, in my head, they were 10th. And then I was like, and then you kept going, and I'm like, there's only 10 teams.
I was like, oh God, do I need to redo it?
No. I mean, I don't, if you want
Basically, McLaren's first.
Okay. That's the important part.
Yeah, and Oscar Piastri is still leading the Drivers' Championship. Lando's still 2nd. Max is 3rd. And so no major movers there. It was a fun race. On and off.
Mm-hmm. There were moments.
Yeah. I think the C6 and all the strategies and all the safety cars, which we'll talk about, like, it definitely was not a snoozer, but there were parts where you're like, I feel like somebody somewhere was always having a battle of some sort.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. That was a good race. I was like, okay, this one was like, I liked this one.
Yeah. I thought it was a good race for the most part. I did fall asleep for a couple of laps. But in my defense, I was just very tired.
She was tired.
I was very tired. I did go to bed late. So I did snooze for a little bit, but it wasn't the race's fault. It was on me.
Yeah.
Because I was just tired.
That's okay.
And yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really enjoyable race. There were several moments where I was screaming at my TV like, ah!
Oh, God.
Several moments. And some very fun racing. At one point at the beginning of the race, I was like, oh, Charles is getting his elbows out. I'm like, Hamilton's getting his elbows out a little bit.
I'm so excited.
It was very, it was a fun race, I think.
It was a fun race, and it made me, I didn't realize this until they were talking about it later, that it's like one of the last, I guess the last time they're in the foreseeable future they're racing here, which is like a shame. Like, I could think of a few other tracks you could probably get rid of first, not gonna lie. And I think a lot of the drivers felt the same way.
Yeah, they talked about it pretty much all weekend. They got a lot of questions about the fact that they won't be here again and what this track means to, all the drivers. And basically it comes down to most of the drivers expressed like, yeah, this track is very historic and we love coming here. It's a fun track to be at. It means a lot to a lot of us. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we also understand the business side of Formula One and that there are a lot of countries that want to host races now, especially with the sport growing as it has been the last several years. And it basically just comes down to you can't have so many races in such a small country when there's so many other countries and even bigger countries. Like, because some people will say, well, the United States has 3 different races. And I'm like, do you know how fucking big the United States is?
Yeah, I would argue that's a little different. That's more like having, there's like technically 5 races on the continent. There's Mexico.
Yeah.
3 in the U.S. and then one in
one
Canada. And I'm like, that feels like fair. Because for the size of the continent anyway,
yes.
So I'm like, it's you hear USA, you're like, that's so many, but like we're huge, like we're literally
and
gigatonic.
Population wise too, because like Canada is also big, but they don't have the same population. No. They have a lot of just frozen wilderness.
Yeah, there's a lot of Canada you literally can't live in. The same way with Russia, there's just so much of it you can't. But anyway, so you're welcome for that. You have fun facts as always.
So my fun facts are very fun this time around. As opposed to every other time, they're not.
No, they're never fun.
No.
This time's so different.
So much fun. So getting into our fun facts for this race, Max Verstappen's win was his 2nd of the season and his 65th of his career. It came on Red Bull's 400th Grand Prix start.
Wow.
That's a lot of good, numbers.
Yes.
It's good, landmark numbers. I was going to say it's a lot of round numbers, but they're not.
It's a lot of round numbers.
Round numbers, even numbers, they're also not. But no, those are a lot of good, milestone numbers. That's very satisfying to me. So he has now won 4 consecutive races at Imola, which is a circuit record.
Wow.
But, and apparently nobody's going to be able to break it anytime soon.
Yeah, literally.
So we're at 4. So, Lando Norris racing for McLaren finished P2, which means that with Max finishing in P1, they're the same top 2 finishers as last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because that's when Lando almost had his ass last year. That's right. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so this was Lando Norris's 4th consecutive podium finish at Imola without winning. He has finished on the podium as many times as McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri this season. So they both made 6 podiums this year.
Damn.
So the fight is heating up between our 2 McLaren drivers.
It's happening.
So also with Max finishing in 1st and Lando finishing in 2nd in that order, that is the 11th time that they've finished in that 1-2 order.
They have finished like that a lot. I was thinking that.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, that's...
It'll be interesting, I think, to see in several years, looking back, it really is an on-track rivalry because they're friends off track. There was some contentious moments, I think, last season, but I think they kind of worked through that and they're mostly good now.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to look back and see if their rivalry is considered one of the a good rivalry, Because you've got some infamous ones. But I feel like that was also in a time when F1 was a lot more cutthroat in a way.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about before how a lot of these drivers have raced together and they have found a way to be competitive against each other on track while still remaining friendly and friends off track and being able to work through problems or whatever for the most part. Mm-hmm. Whereas in years gone by, that's not necessarily the case. And you have full on hatred, rivalries, butting heads. I don't fuck with you. You don't fuck with me.
Yeah,
vibes.
I think a lot of that, though, because like a rivalry everybody always talks about is like Senna and Prost. But I think, though, the level of respect they had for one another, I think those type of dynamics interest me. Niki Lauda and James Hunt as well. Like, I don't think rivalries just aren't built the same like they used to, which I actually liked. I like that element of how would I word it? It's not that I'm even saying more cutthroat. It's just like, I'm not here for friends. I'm here for a purpose, and maybe I like you, but at the end of the day, like, I'm here for a reason. Like, it's just a little more harsh, maybe. But what I think's interesting is, like, even though like Senna and Prost had this big rivalry as well, I mean, he was a pallbearer at his funeral, so like the level of respect that people had for each other was probably even deeper then. Like, the rivalries might be deeper, but the level of respect was also deeper than what it is now. I would think. I guess like because the level,
it's like a different sort of relationship. It's more like intense. I think if you look at past ones where they're more sort of like diehard, kind of contentious and stuff. Like you said, there's a level of respect there that when you're racing so hard, you can't help but be like, okay, they're literally like me. And if they weren't competing against me, we probably would be friends. Like if they were in a completely different sport, because we're so similar. Yeah. We actually probably have a lot in common with the way we approach things and the way we view winning. Yeah. But it's the fact that like, no, bitch, I'm going to be the best at any cost. Like I will be the winner. Any cost. Like that's what, but again, you just have, I think, a deeper connection to somebody, even if there's not like that intimacy, not in like a weird way, but you know. Yeah. But yeah, so I just...
It will be interesting to see if it's going to be a Lando and Max rivalry, or if... Because now we've got like this, like Oscar, like everybody knew Oscar was going to be what he's becoming. Like everybody just saw it.
It's just, I think he's on a faster track than what maybe some people anticipated.
Yeah, something that I thought was interesting was somebody, you know, we've talked about... The Formula One narrative is interesting because it moves very fast. So 1 second it's Lando, and now Oscar's done very well the past few races, and now all eyes are on him. But when you compare, and I know they were on different tire strategies and there were some things that happened, but like Lando's race pace arguably multiple times has been better. And so I hope we don't get into a scenario where, because everybody's once again building a driver up who, you know, he's going to have that expectations, kind of like how we talked about last episode, where if Lando does start to outperform him, which he may, now that all the attention isn't on him as much, he may finally, because he won't feel that pressure, he may start outperforming Oscar. So it'll be interesting to see how the narrative then switches, because it's like, it's so fast. But it'll be interesting if it's an Oscar Max, Oscar Lando, Lando Max. Like, who's going to be the rivalry, or is there going to be like a threesome? What's the narrative here?
Yeah, I know we're only, 7 rounds into how many are there? 24?
Yeah.
20. I feel like I heard someone say they're doing 25 races. Are they doing 25 next year? I feel like it was like in one of the press conferences, I feel like Lance Stroll said something about 25 races.
Who knows?
But yeah, this season we're only 7 races into a 24 race season, and it's very, like this at the top right now. It's kind of...
But God, McLaren is so far ahead in the constructors. Like, who's going to catch up to that?
Speaking of Oscar Piastri, so with him finishing in P3, the top 3 in the championship finished on the podium, but in the reverse order. So we've got Oscar leading the championship, and then Lando, and then Max, and then they finished in the reverse order. Yeah. And all 3 are separated by 22 points. 1 race win, 1 DNF. Like, we got a new championship leader. So,
but you need them. But like, if Max keeps finishing second and Oscar keeps finishing first, it's like you need them to DNF. You need one of them to go. Or to finish just outside.
I think this season might come down to like 1 race where one of them DNFs or like doesn't finish in the points for whatever reason. It's going to be like that 1 race where one of them crashes out, has an engine problem, has a power unit problem, something like that. Yeah. I think it's going to come down to that 1 race that I think you'll be able to pinpoint exactly the moment where they lost the championship, because every single race matters. So in P4, we had Lewis Hamilton.
Oh my God. I was so happy. I was like, thank God.
This is his best Grand Prix result to date for Ferrari. In a main race. Yeah, in the Grand Prix. Not, obviously, he won the sprint race.
Don't forget the sprint!
Yeah. No one cares about the sprint!
Yeah.
And so that moves him ahead of Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli and into 6th in the Drivers' Championship.
Oh, okay, I didn't even look at that. Thank God.
Yeah.
I was so happy. I was like,
you were.
thank God, man. Everybody's criticizing my boy, my guy. Like, stop it.
Yeah, I do agree. We talked a little earlier before we started recording about how Lewis seems to be under, like, harsher scrutiny than Charles. And part of that is, I think, just because he's new to the team. But he is a 7-time world champion. And so, you know, Charles is on a pedestal, golden child. Like, he's il predestinato. Like, he's their guy. So he really can't do any wrong, especially because, like, Ferrari does him dirty so often with strategy and with,
they do everybody dirty. But this race was
so you
good.
can't help but like feel bad for Charles and be like, oh, when he doesn't do well, it's not his fault.
Oh, I feel bad for Lewis, and I know when Lewis does bad, it's not his fault. It's everybody else that's like, well, you're a 7-time world champion. Why aren't you first?
Yeah.
Why didn't you just go in the garage yourself and fix the car? Well, I think if he could, he would.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, he did really well. Ferrari their qualifying pace is straight ass. It's not good. Their 1 lap is not great. Race pace, they're great. And that's what's so annoying is they should be on the podium, but they're qualifying like shit.
Which is really...
It's super bizarre.
It's mystifying because... And I know Lewis hasn't always been the best qualifier. I mean, you can look at the last 2 years he was with Mercedes. I mean, he was frequently out-qualified by George Russell. But Charles historically is a really good qualifier.
Yeah.
And so it's just so bizarre that they're having so many issues with qualifying. And I don't know I don't know necessarily that it's the car. Is it the qualifying strategy of when they're sending them out and timing their qualifying laps, or the tire strategy for qualifying? Because there is a strategy component to that.
Yeah.
As we saw with, George Russell deciding to use the mediums in qualifying.
Aston Martin.
Yeah. So we'll get to Aston Martin. Don't you worry.
But yeah, I was very happy about Lewis. I was like, oh, thank you.
So his teammate Charles Leclerc finished P6. He's finished in the top 10 at every race this season, but only has 1 podium finish in Saudi Arabia. Charles, his race was interesting. Which I want to get to a little bit later. I don't want to go into too much now because I have
she has thoughts.
I have thoughts.
She has thoughts.
So moving on to Williams.
What the fuck?
What the fuck, Williams? Like,
I was like, Alex!
Go off Alexander Albon. Like, come on, sir. He finished P5, and that is the 3rd time this season he's finished P5. The team Williams didn't score any top 6 finishes between 2022 and 2024. And this is the 3rd time he's been 5 this season.
James Vowles sitting here going,
I mean, in Vowles we trust.
Queen.
And
King.
So Carlos Sainz finished P8. So both Williams drivers scored points for the 3rd consecutive Grand Prix. And back to Alex. Alex's P5 at Imola is the best result for Williams at this track since Juan Pablo Montoya finished 3rd in 2004. So both Williams cars, I mean,
insane,
nuts.
Alex was just like
what?
Bye.
What business did Carlos Sainz have doing in Q2? Coming in P1 and Q2 and qualifying.
What business?
What business, sir?
What?
I was just like, Carlos, what are we doing? And then, oh my God, I was dying when the interviewers are asking Carlos after the qualifying session. They're like, could you even imagine last year after you found out you lost your seat at Ferrari and we're looking for a new seat? Could you even have imagined that with moving to Williams, there would be a point this early in the season, we're only 7 races in, that you would, in a Williams, you would be P1 in Q2 and both Ferraris would be out in Q2. And he was like, wish them all the best. But yeah, it's nuts. He's like, this is great.
Yes. I mean, it was also, which one you said we were talking about, the Aston Martin thing. I mean, that whole that was insane. That was nuts. But yeah, I'm like, Carlos Sainz is like, you broke up with me? Fine. I'm moving on. Whatever.
And he's in a better relationship.
Thriving.
Yeah. So love that for him.
Yeah. Carlos is, I mean, he's not underrated, but he kind of is. So I feel like sometimes, I feel like people love him, but I don't know that his flowers. Give that man his flowers.
I was even of this opinion the last season and the season before. When I look at him and the steady, and we've talked about before, the steady success that he's had. He's moved around a lot into different teams. I mean, when you think about, he started at Red Bull, and then he was a part of Renault, he was a part of McLaren, and then he was at Ferrari and Ferrari was his longest stint. He was there for 4 years.
Yeah.
Now he's with Williams. So this is his 5th team.
I think it's a long-term contract too.
Yeah. And so, but he's always had pretty decent success at the teams he's been at, and he's progressively gotten better and better. And I do think he's an underrated driver. I mean, I don't think people enough mention his name when it comes up in conversations about the best drivers on the grid. I mean, if you could name the top 5 drivers on the grid right now, I think you have to put him up there.
Yeah, I would think so. I think it's not even, I mean, obviously he's an amazing driver, but I think what he brings to the team.
I agree.
And so Travis and I were talking about that, where basically we were talking about, how he's really into the engineering, he's taking engineering classes, things like that. And Travis had asked, he's like, I wonder if some of the lack in performance of Ferrari has anything to do with the fact that they're not getting that same perspective from Carlos. I mean, not to say that Charles and Lewis don't have valuable perspective, but I don't know when it comes to the engineering side of things. I mean, obviously everybody's well aware how things work, but it makes you wonder, like, it's interesting to see Williams is thriving with him and Ferrari is struggling now a little bit.
I think that the relationship between the engineers and then the drivers is interesting in that neither of them really can fully comprehend or understand the other from their perspective. Meaning that most engineers have, I would assume, I don't know for a fact, I haven't surveyed them all, but I would assume most engineers have not actually driven the cars or been in the cars that they're designing and working on.
Yeah.
Most drivers have not been in the position to engineer and create a car the way the engineers have. And so they're relying on each other. It's like they're trying to translate what they're seeing and understanding from their side, and they're trying to translate it into a language that the other can understand and help each other move forward. And I think that can be tricky to navigate sometimes because, I mean, I've heard several interviews with drivers before when they are asked about some of these things. And I mean, I think Alex Albon has done an interview before specifically about trying to, when he first started in Formula One, he wasn't as good about that. He was kind of just holding on and trying to just get the car around in a race. But like, as he got more experience and was around for, longer, he really made it a priority to develop that skill set of being able to say, okay, here's what I'm feeling in the car, and translating that in a way that the engineers can understand and do something with it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about the fact that, like, if you've seen the movie Rush, I mean, Niki Lauda, he's like, this car is ass. And then he wants to stay late and he wants to help fix it because he has that knowledge of how the car even works. Mm-hmm. And same to Senna was the same way. There was a story of Senna where they had I guess it was a reserve driver doing one of the practice sessions back then. And Senna was like, the fuck? Because he wanted to be able to experience that. And so that reserve driver, he's like, I got out of the car and Senna was like, tell me this. I need to know all. Like, that's just the driver. Mm-hmm. And so I think that having that sort of knowledge, one, it makes your communication with your engineer that much more easy. And you're able to understand each other a little bit better. Because even his engineer had said something about Alex's time. Like, and I don't remember if it was posed as a question or a statement, but basically Carlos was like, oh, well, if he's doing that time, talking about Alex.
Yeah, it was like 21.8. Yeah. I remember the moment you're talking about. Yeah, and because I saw the number, because I always have my captions on the screen, because apparently I can't hear if I can't read.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing that number come up 21.8, and I was like, what is that? What is they referring to? I wonder if they're referring to like the Delta.
I'm not sure. But either way, Carlos was like, oh, well, if he's doing that, then it's going to have to be a one-stop. But like, it was interesting to hear. I mean, they were just informing him, but it was also, they obviously respect his opinion or what he infers from that information as well. And so I just am like, Carlos is so valuable that I'm like, yeah, I mean, even if I wasn't to say, even if I were to go through the grid now, and if I didn't say he was a top 5 driver, I would still consider him somebody I would pay a lot of money for, and I'd want him on my team. Even if I'm like, but I do think he is in the top 5.
Yeah,
I
was going to say, we'd have to set the parameters of when we say a top 5 driver. Yeah. Are we talking about on-track race results or overall package and what they contribute to a team?
Yeah. But no, Williams was, that's crazy. Yeah. That was literally insane.
So moving on to Mercedes, George Russell took P7. He's the only driver other than Piastri, Norris, and Verstappen to score in every Grand Prix so far this season.
Watch out for Russell.
We said several episodes ago, he's our dark horse.
He is. He's like that person that I'm like,
watch out.
Yeah, just watch your back.
So Kimi Antonelli did not finish the race, and this was his home Grand Prix. He literally grew up, he said, 30 minutes from the racetrack.
So sad.
He had his, he organized and had Mercedes organized for his class because he still in school. I think he just finished up or is finishing up his like last year of school. And he had it organized so that his whole class
and his teachers came.
And his teachers could come, I think, on one of the practice days and just kind of like see everything that goes into it, which I'm like, that is so cool. Like that he was able to do that.
That is super cute.
But like also that his class and like teachers were like, excited to be there and like this is so like I couldn't even imagine one of my classmates in high school doing something like that, like what? Being like, oh, you have a full-time job. Like, you know, I had a part-time job in high school, but I was just, you know, a hostess at a restaurant. Like
that, I literally can't even fathom. Like imagine Kimmy is a part of your group project and you're just
for
like
real.
You get to the track, you're like, have you done it yet?
Yeah, and a lot of people his teammates didn't even realize he was still in school because he was talking about, I think, the last race, they were doing like the fan stage asking questions, and then he said something about, they mentioned something about him doing like a math test, and George Russell was like, you're still in school? What? Oh, you still got exams? Like, full-time
How could
student,
you not know that?
Like, I mean, he does everything. Full-time student, full-time driver, like.
How could George not know that? He's literally Detective George. What? Secret Agent George Russell. How do you not know that? Did you see the message that, because Toto wasn't there, and he sent them like a WhatsApp video or whatever, and he was giving Kimmy all this advice and all this stuff, and George goes, "What about me?" And he goes, "You're 27 years old.
You're now doing this a long time."
Yeah, because you've been doing this a long time. You're the senior driver.
You don't need advice.
I feel like that was a pretty decent Toto.
Yeah.
SNL, if you need a Toto impressionist, it's me, apparently. The only impression I've done in my life where I was like, that wasn't that far off, besides being like a girl.
Moving on to Racing Bulls, Isaac Hadjar finished P9. It's his 3rd points finish in the last 5 Grand Prix.
I like him. I think he is very, very like consistent and just is obviously like the number 1 driver of this team currently. I think that he is, without a doubt, outperforming his teammate and at times outperforming Yuki, which is me. I love Yuki, and I hate to even say, but like Isaac is just he had whatever that it factor is that you just have naturally. He's got it.
Yeah.
And everybody keeps talking about Kimi Antonelli, and he is like the best performing rookie, but at the same time, Isaac is, besides really that big mistake in
Australia.
Yeah, Australia. Like he's performed very consistently, and watch out.
It's like quietly impressive for, you know, because really, I feel like for a rookie season in Formula One, all you can really ask for from a rookie is that they don't crash out and that occasionally they score points. You know, you obviously want them to do it all the time, but if they can just not cause damage to the car, and, you know, that's just the team spending more money to get it fixed and all that stuff. So if they could just not damage the car, and if they can occasionally score points, I feel like that's a pretty successful rookie season. And aside from that one early incident, which did not set a great tone for his season.
No, they had to send out the emotional support dad.
Yeah. Moving on to back to the sister team, Red Bull. Yuki Tsunoda finished P10, and he scored that single point from a pit lane start.
He did really well, yeah. Yeah. And he was able to gain data or whatever for Max for the hard tire, I think is the other thing they had done. So, I mean, he did his teammate duties.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense the way that they did that, having them start on different tires, offset strategies. I'm trying to wonder why like McLaren doesn't do that more often. And it may just be that their drivers qualify so close together that they want to give both of them the best possible chance to score points. But I'm also like, I feel like sometimes an offset strategy can help avoid some of the issues they have in terms of like team orders and stuff.
I don't know. I mean, because Charles and Lewis were also on different strategies, but I don't know how that functions because each one has their own race engineer, right? And they have their side of the garage.
Yeah.
I don't know functionality wise how those teams, how each side of the garage is functioning when they're talking about what their strategy for the driver is going to be. Like, is each one aware? Do they like talk? Like, that's what because I mean, you're still racing against them and you're still a team, but you have your side and they have their side. So I don't know how that works.
That would be where the team principle comes in, to my understanding.
So
it's basically like, you have a wall, you do your thing, I do my thing.
Yeah.
And then the team principal, I think, is aware of everything going on. And their job then is to decide what information gets shared across that wall and across the garage.
Yeah.
And what can help versus like having the discernment and using their judgment to know when to keep things separate and let them run their own race.
So that's why I was like, I don't know why, like, if that plays a role into what they're going to do strategy wise, especially like the teams that are closer together, like Ferrari and McLaren and things like that.
Yeah, I would think that part of it comes down to just how your drivers qualify. If you're going to focus how much teamwork you're going to use versus like letting them run their own sort of race. And I feel like a more hands-off approach, if you're qualifying consistently, if your drivers are qualifying consistently close, a more hands-off approach might be appropriate. Because you're kind of like, just let them do their thing. And then occasionally as needed, as team principal, you step in and say, no, this is what we're going to do. As a team principal, your job is to maximize points for the whole team versus like the engineers for that particular driver. Their job is to get their driver to win and to maximize points for their driver. And, the team principal is the one that bridges the gap.
That's kind of what I like about Zach Brown's attitude. I know some people, they're criticizing it a lot, but I think that he is doing his best to respect both drivers. And that's why, there was no team orders given when arguably they should have swapped and let Lando go and attack Max. But at the end of the day, they were hands off and they're like, okay, well, if you can pass him, do it.
And
to
be clear, we are aware that Zach Brown is not the team principal for McLaren.
We are very aware of that. It's he's there all the time.
And he is sort of I feel like Andrea Estella, he's the team principal for McLaren. And I feel like he does media stuff when he has to. But I feel like he's fine to let Zach get in front of the cameras because Andrea's like, I got work to do, bro.
Yeah.
So I feel like Zach is more like a spokesperson at the races that he's at. He loves to be on the camera. Anytime F1 TV is like,
he loves it.
He loves Laura.
I do too, though.
Yeah, I can't.
How could you not? Like,
everyone loves Laura.
You can't blame him. His body language is wow.
Always like pointing toward her. Like, yeah. Yuki Tsunoda, which is where we started this fun fact.
Sorry, Yuki.
So this was his second year in a row finishing 10th at Imola.
Yuki did good for what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, he recovered well.
That crash in qualifying.
Terrifying.
So when I was watching qualifying, I was doing I think I was cooking breakfast while it was going on. So I was listening and checking in every once in a while. So I heard the announcer say, oh my God, reacting to it. I didn't see the crash happen until the replay. And then I was like, oh, because all I saw was the car crash and then him getting out of it and them saying he's okay.
We didn't see it live happen either.
Oh, we didn't?
No,
okay.
No, I mean,
because I wasn't looking at the TV when it was on. And so it must have been, it was either the replay or I would have seen it online. I may have went actually to Twitter to see, because somebody would have posted the clip from it.
Yeah.
And it
looked horrifying.
Awful. Like he flipped and spun and slid and popped out of that car and was completely fine.
Yeah. It was really scary.
Crazy.
It was, yeah. So when I was watching qualifying, basically that's what happened. So like the camera cuts to Yuki, the cars looks all messed up. At that point, I had no idea the car had flipped, anything like that. I just at the time, because we didn't see the replay yet, and so neither did Alex or Joylin, and so literally they played the replay and they're like, holy crap, and what the heck? Yeah, that was crazy. But like he just took too much curb and it sent his ass flying.
I can't even. So I saw that clip and I don't know if you heard or saw about at the Indy 500 was also this weekend.
I saw that, yeah.
And the clip of, I forget which driver it was, but he also was airborne and flipping and all this stuff. And like you see the
it's just dragging his ass down the straight after that. And I'm like, holy
They showed
shit.
his onboard, like just footage of him when it happened. And at one point he literally just lets go of the steering wheel and just pulls his hands in. And he's like, I can almost imagine he's got his eyes closed. It's like, oh God. But yeah, glad Yuki's okay.
Yeah.
Glad that IndyCar driver, I forget, pardon me, sir. I forget.
Your
name escapes me.
Yeah, I didn't even see his name. I just saw the clip and I was like, holy shit.
But yeah, that onboard is not, like, I can't even imagine being in that scenario and then just fly. Like, you're literally airborne and tumbling. You don't know which way's up.
Yeah.
Nuts. Okay, so moving on to Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso.
That was really depressing, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was so excited in qualifying, but I knew in my heart it wasn't going to work.
Too good to be true.
It wasn't even that. You have limited tires. And you use the best ones in qualifying, which arguably, you're like the second slowest team, like, I think, technically, to get yourself up there. Yeah, so I mean, strategy-wise, at the time, I was like, that's so good, which kind of leads back to the point about Lewis and Charles both getting knocked out. It was by both Aston Martins because they used the medium tire. So if you're not aware, they introduced the C6 tire this weekend. We originally thought it was going to premiere at the start of the year. We thought it was going to like make its debut in Monaco, but it made its debut in Imola. And
it was the soft tire for this round.
Yes. And so, which means the soft tire last year that they used last year was the medium tire.
Mm-hmm.
So they were doing the C6, C5, C4. And that tire was just not great. Nobody really liked it, but they were giving more sets of that tire as they normally are for qualifying purposes. And so each team is given a certain amount of tires of each compound. And
basically, it's like the tire was ass, but they had to use it for qualifying. Most teams chose to use it for qualifying because they're like, we're not using this.
Well, they had like 4 of them, I think, and like you weren't going to use that tire whatsoever in the main race. And it just, Aston Martin, they made the decision to use the medium tire, which is, it is interesting because essentially that is the qualifying tire from last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did great in qualifying, but they also had limited tire selection, which was something that came up more than I'd ever heard, actually, from last year and the start of this year. That came up with Charles. We don't have a tire. Mm-hmm. And so it was...
they said, so for Charles, it was they didn't have a tire that would last.
Yes.
So basically, they had used softs, and I think they might have had a used medium, but they said that basically he had 17 laps to go when he was like, we got to consider letting me stop again. I think they wanted him to pit under the safety car, I think is what happened. And they had 17 laps to go. And they were basically like, we don't have a tire that can last 17 laps.
He's like, what about the soft? They're like, Charles, it's 17, which really the safety car ended up lasting. I mean, it was only like, a 10 lap shootout by the time the safety car left, 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. So that might be something they reflect on later. I don't think that soft tire would have even lasted that. It was so fragile.
Too soft.
It was, nobody loved it.
I feel like, and with Imola, I want to say they did 63 laps, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when you're looking at the compounds of tires and the way you're going to utilize them, you want, for a 63 lap race, I would want a soft tire to last me at least 10 laps. I mean, minimum. But even then, you would probably utilize it more in a 2-stop race.
But yeah, Aston Martin, it was qualifying. They were just like killed it, but they also made that decision and they didn't have really any tires to switch to under one of the safety cars, which is why Alonso was just like, what the he was like, this is torture. I'm the unluckiest driver in the entire world. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so he, despite qualifying well, finished P11 and is now finished 11th on 3 occasions this year without scoring a single point.
Dude.
And I'm just like, bro, we're so close.
I want Alonso to get points so bad.
Just 1 point. I feel like he would be so happy if he got it.
I wouldn't be so happy because I'm like, and it's everybody has the exact same answer. I heard Ruth say it. She goes, but he'll bounce back. And I'm like, everybody's just like, hey,
he'll do it.
He'll do it. We know it's okay.
So moving on to Nico Hülkenberg, racing for Kick Sauber, finished P12. It's their best finish since Australia. and in what was their 600th Grand Prix.
Oh.
So kick Sauber been around for a minute.
Yeah.
Interesting that this was their 600th, and also it was Red Bull's 400th.
That's insane.
Yeah. And then Esteban Ocon retired from this race. Esty Bestie.
Yeah, that was large oof.
Yeah, and this was his first retirement since joining us.
Mm-hmm. That was not great. So I guess the big thing that happened that everybody was just like mind blown on was Max.
Mm-hmm. That move, first lap, second corner.
He was basically like, I'm getting this or we're all going to fucking crash. Because he's like, pick one. We're either all going to crash or I'm going.
So he, people obviously were asking him about it after the fact. And they were like, can you kind of just talk through what was going through your mind? Or, when did you have the confidence that you could make that corner, or that you were going to go? Like, when did you kind of know you were going to do it? And he's like, listen, it all happened so fast. He's like, I think he was more like, you're not really thinking that far ahead. And it's in the moment, you just make the choice. And like I forget who, I think it was Alex Brundle. They had him I want to say it was the post-race show. Mm-hmm. They had him basically do a breakdown. And so you see the onboard camera that's above Max's head. Mm-hmm. And so in that, from the start, he's breaking down what Max is doing to the point where he's like, okay, so we get here. And then look, you see him they get the launch, not a great launch for him. Mm-hmm. And then you see him checking the mirror here and checking the mirror here, trying to see where everybody's at. And then you see him kind of like, I think for Max, it sounds too simple to say just right place, right time. But I think that's kind of what happened, in that I don't think he planned to make that move. He just found himself there and took advantage of the moment. And he, I think, is king of taking advantage of a moment.
Oh, yeah. He can capitalize on it. And he's also king of the breaks. I mean, I think that it sucked for George Russell because he arguably had the best start. Mm-hmm. But then he's stuck behind Piastri. And he's stuck next to Max. And because of the line Piastri's taking, it just allowed Max to go on the outside and go, done, bye, see you later. I mean, it was insane. I was just like...
It was nuts.
Every single time, like Max, every race, he does something that makes you go, dude is in a league of his own. He is
one or two moments every race.
He does something that you're like,
that other drivers are just not doing.
No.
And it's crazy. It's there's a moment, which one of my favorite things watching cars race is when they get so close but don't touch. Because they are so professional at what they do and so good at what they do and have such great reactions and awareness that they can race that closely together. When people say, they love and we want to see close racing, that's what we mean. We literally want them to be side by side going through these turns. And so one of my favorite moments is when like the two cars are side by side, and then one of their tires, they get so close, gets in between the other two tires of the other driver. So literally like, my front tire is between the two tires of the drivers next to me because of the way the cars are made. So you can get that close where the tires are like
terrifying.
Terrifying, but beautiful and wonderful, and like chill bumps. Like it's I just love it. It's my favorite. Anytime I see that happen, I'm just like so excited.
That was insane. That was beautiful. Just
chef's kiss. No notes.
Yes.
10 out of 10.
Yes. Phenomenal.
Yep.
Ferrari was the other thing that I had on my list, which we kind of already talked about, but we were going to talk about Charles's strategy.
Yes. So I have a question to pose for us. And Fernando Alonso is the one who inspired my question. Who is the unluckier driver? Fernando Alonso or Charles Leclerc? Because, and I will pose both sides of this equation, this question. So Fernando Alonso, basically his waist was ruined.
His waist was ruined.
His race was ruined after Aston Martin decided not to pit their cars for fresh tires during a virtual safety car that was triggered by Esteban Ocon's DNF. So he actually went backwards because they didn't
have any tires to give him because they used him all in qualifying.
Yeah. So basically he went backwards and because he was in the points for a little bit. So he went backwards out of the points despite having a car quick enough to be in the points. And it was because of the tire strategy they used. And so he came on the radio because of that, knowing he wasn't going to. score points and it was going to fuck him. He came in the radio and said, yeah, it's going to be torture. It's a wreck. I'm the unluckiest driver in the bleeping world.
Yeah.
And then I said, are you, sir? Are you actually indeed the unluckiest driver in the world? Because immediately I'm like, Charles Leclerc. Even looking back at just historically, yes, but even just in Q2 with the Q2 exit, and then you hear him on the radio saying, my God, my God, and then looking so just like forlorn into the camera when he's still in the car, and you're just like sad boy eyes, like he's just distraught. So we had that moment in Q2, and then so in the race they pitted him early, trying to undercut everybody else, and at one point, one of the commentators for F1 TV said something to the effect of like commenting on Ferrari's strategy, saying it was like a genius strategy or it was like phenomenal, something to that effect. Like they were praising Ferrari's strategy. And I'm like, what hell universe is this?
That was before all the safety cars, though.
Exactly. And so
it was perfect until all that happened.
For once, Ferrari seemed to have made the correct strategy call and the right decision, because when they pitted him early, they said he was effectively running a net fourth place because almost everyone else ahead of him hadn't pitted yet. And so the position he was in, I don't think he came out in too much traffic. He was having to do some overtakes, but it wasn't crazy.
He also was one of the first ones, and that's kind of like what led a lot of the other people to pit.
Yes. And so it seemed like he made a good call. However, then, a lot of people that started on the medium tire, I heard, again, one of the commentators said that people started on the medium tire, they didn't give it enough time to like warm up and get really effective. And they kind of panicked and made early pit stop, jumped on the hard too soon. And they said it could have also been triggered by Leclerc making the early pit stop. And so then, the people that were more patient on the medium tire started to see that return on it. And so with the virtual safety cars and them basically just canceled out Leclerc's early pit stop and whatever benefit he could have gotten from that. And he just ended up being on the unlucky side of like, it seems like every time something goes wrong, it's just, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. And so that is my question, is who is actually the unluckiest driver on the grid?
I mean, he has points. I'm going with Alonso. I'm going with the fact that we know that Alonso's extremely talented, and he's stuck in a team that he's not able to fully perform at his skill level at. Charles is unlucky, but he is still able to extract some performance from his car despite how unlucky he is. And I mean, he's won some beautiful races last year. He got on the podium this year. He's unlucky in the sense of he should be higher in the top 10. Alonso should just be in the top 10. Mm-hmm. I would pose he's not the luckiest girl in the world. But that's just how I think about it anyway.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny. It was such a funny comment that I was immediately like, Fernando Alonso, I would put up Charles Leclerc against you.
And then Alonso would go, how many points does he have? Okay, and done. How many points do I have? Oh, none? I think I'm the unluckiest girl in the world. Yeah, Ferrari, it was just, and this was a little annoying, and it wasn't anything Ferrari actually did. It was the fact that, so I'm assuming most people are aware of this, but if you are not, the radio messages that they decide to show us have been scanned through, and then they decide we're going to put this on the broadcast. So if you were to watch a driver's onboard footage, you would, and you had their audio, because you can do that on F1 TV, you would hear their radio communication, how much they are or are not talking to their engineer, things that they said and have not said. So Lewis last race had some colorful messages that everybody was like, oh, by golly gee whiz. Oh my goodness, Lewis Hamilton sassy. Not like it's the first time Lewis has ever been sassy on the radio, but this, he's one of those, him and Max, I think, are two people that everybody will fixate on anything that they say. And so because of that, they did include that in their race wrap-up when they were showing, here's what happened last race. And they did include those radio messages. And then, again, because of the strategy between Ferrari, Charles ended up being, basically Lewis was gaining on Charles towards the end of the race. And they're like, oh, are we going to get some colorful radio messages? It just felt like they were really zeroing in on their radio communication, where I'm also like, but how many other teams are having radio communications that we're not hearing because you're choosing not to broadcast them? And I'm not blaming the commentators for that. I'm just saying it's like, I get that it's dramatic and it's fun, but I'm also like, all right, well, let's just move on though. Like, I don't want, let's not create the narrative that like anytime Charles and Lewis are near each other, there's going to be contention, because there wasn't this time. He passed him. It was what it was. You know, Lewis, I mean, he ended up capitalizing really on that incident with Albon and Charles or whatever, but I'm like, I think that it's just why. We moved on. That was one thing that annoyed me. Because I'm like, there really wasn't any drama. I mean, Lewis, this race was kind of, him and his engineer were pretty cool. Was what it was. I mean, his strategy ended up working out. And I'm like, I don't know whose idea it was or what it was, but he was able to benefit. And the craziest part is I'm like, what? The amount of like pace he ended up having towards the end of the race. I'm like, dude, 3 more laps, that he would have been third. Because at first I was like, oh, he's not going to gain that much time. He gained so much time that I'm like, holy fuck. Like, and I understand there wasn't 3 more laps. I'm just saying the pace of the car that he ended up having, I'm like, that's the race pace we're looking for. Where is it? Mm-hmm. The race pace is great. We need it in qualifying because at that point, him and Charles should be on the podium. Come on. So frustrated. Being a Ferrari fan sucks.
You're like, Lewis finished P4, his best result so far for Ferrari, and I'm still mad.
I'm not mad.
Frustrated.
I'm more like, I'm excited, but I'm also like,
we could have done better.
Like, why?
That's been Charles Leclerc the entire time he's at Ferrari.
I mean,
his whole Ferrari career is like, but why?
Don't get me wrong. Last year with Mercedes and other years with Mercedes, once they weren't the top team, there was often just why? Come on. But Ferrari, they just have got to, whatever their issue with qualifying is, like, let's just fix it because you guys clearly the race pace should be up there.
I mean, and you can make up for poor qualifying during the race, but there's got to be a little give in the qual. Like, you can't qualify so badly.
But yeah, but then you're also way more wear and tear trying to battle everybody. Yeah. There's so many other scenarios that you're having to battle through, which I'm like, yeah, it's fun to watch them do that. But it's also like, if you would have qualified 5th and 6th, you wouldn't
imagine what
you would have done if you didn't have to, fight through 10 cars.
Yeah.
So that was just like, come on, man. So we can hop into our rookie report. It has been amended to include Franco Colapinto, and Jack Doohan is highlighted in red at the bottom for now, for if he returns.
Yes.
So Kimi Antonelli, he qualified 13th. He unfortunately had a DNF, so no points. He DNF'd on lap 46 while he was in 10th. He had throttle issues after his pit stop, so he was just struggling. He also said that he didn't have as much energy as he thought he should have because really the excitement of the weekend and how Italy just was like, Imola was just like embracing him, and then his classmates were there, his teachers were there, and so he kind of didn't really save as much energy as he should, and he said he felt that while in the car. He was way more exhausted than he normally was, and so he said he learned his lesson there and is ready to rest and reset and conserve more energy going into Monaco.
Well, apparently his the local football, the soccer team, they won some important game or some championship or something. Yep. And because they asked him about that at the beginning of the weekend, and he was like, yeah, I was out with my friends, not too long, because I knew I had to get up to be here today. But I was like, oh, all of that compounded, and I can imagine how tired he was.
So, no points for him, but that's okay. He'll bounce back. Now we have Isaac Hadjar. He qualified 9th. He finished 9th, so 2 points. Woo. Isaac did well. He did kind of have a little bit of like a sketchy start this weekend. He had a red flag in FP2, which ended up ending the session anyway because it was towards the end of the session. But despite that, he was very consistent throughout the weekend for the most part. He felt he had a really good weekend. He's happy with their performance despite the difficult start that cost him 2 places. So really, the start of the race, he ended up falling back 2 places, so he had to fight for those places back. But he did fight his way back into the points. He praised the car and the tire management, so he's praising the team during the race, and he was hopeful for a top 7 finish until the safety car disrupted their plans because there was a virtual safety car for one. I think that was for Ocon, and then there was a actual safety car for Antonelli. So, but he was very proud of his team for scoring points. And I thought his wording was very interesting. He was very like praising the team, being proud of the team. And again, I think we've mentioned this before, like he's really taking a leadership role. And I think that's nice. I think that, him being a rookie, but still adopting that kind of mindset and having that mindset as a rookie. That's why I'm like, I think he's going to be somebody that we see for a while. Mm-hmm. Now, Ollie Behrman, poor sweet Ollie, he qualified 19th. He finished 17th. So 0 points. Now, Ollie had some qualifying drama.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I completely forgot about that. That was nuts.
That was insane.
He was robbed.
I agree. So,
I would love to know what the stewards, what their...
Oh, I had the time.
Yeah, I'm like, what's their justification for that?
I deleted it off here, but it was like 100th or something of a second. Basically, whenever they got down to it. Mm-hmm. It was like picture type stuff.
Well, I'm like, because I saw the footage of them showing when he crossed the line versus when the light in the actual like red flag signal came on, that there was a red flag, and
it was milliseconds.
He crossed the line before. But
I'm not saying he didn't.
They started questioning like, well, when are you saying when is a red flag effective? Is it when the stewards say it? Is it when they push a button? Or is it when the sign and the light display?
Yes. And
like,
so
at what point?
Yeah, Haas says they've complained. But so the qualifying drama is, so Ollie jumped to 10th late in Q1, but his time was deleted for being set after red flags were thrown for Colapinto crashing at the very end of Q1. And so essentially, Ollie crosses the line, he jumps to 10th, and then his time is deleted because of a red flag that was
thrown basically right as he was crossing the line.
And so there was a lot of debate on whether the time should count or not, which led to a delay in starting Q2.
Because basically, if they allowed the time, he moves into Q1 in 10th.
And then it would have knocked out Gabriel Bortoleto.
Yeah, and so if they said, no, that time doesn't count, then Gabby goes into Q1.
Yes. And so there was a lot of debate about it, and it led to the delay in starting Q2, but ultimately the FIA decided the lap should be deleted. And Haas and him, they have complained about it. I think they've also asked for some reasons, and the FIA did come out and they did show the times. I mean, it was milliseconds. That being said,
everything, I guess at that point, I'm like, everything is down to milliseconds, in Formula One, it's all the fine margins and the rule is the rule. I get that.
But that's such ass because he qualified 19th, but he should have been 10th. And it's great. It sucks. So Ollie and Haas, that was very unfortunate for them. So that was Ollie's drama at the very start of the weekend. Besides that, he said he felt the race was going really well and they were in a strong position, and they originally had a one-stop strategy, switching to the medium tires during the virtual safety car, aiming to come out behind Russell in P7. However, his pit stop went wrong because his wheel wasn't attached properly, which ended up costing them time. But the car felt good all weekend, he said, but there was just, the qualifying issue, the pit stop issue just kind of led to them not really being able to do anything. So poor Ollie. Now we have Gabriel Bortoleto. He qualified 14th. He finished 18th, so 0 points. He kind of had a rough weekend as well. There was lots of crashes this weekend. He crashed an FP1, causing a red flag to be deployed in the session, ending under that flag. So that's the second rookie who crashed during a practice session, which essentially ended it because of the time that they crashed. He said that the race presented challenges despite them showing some good pace on the hard tires. The initial stint progressed well until the virtual safety car appeared, and then at an unfavorable moment, basically the safety car appeared to them at an unfavorable moment, and it just caused a lot of loss in momentum. Basically, they just didn't have a good weekend. They couldn't capitalize on anything every 2 seconds. It just felt like whenever they started to get pace, something happened to make them lose said pace. And so Gabriel basically said he thought the race pace was better than it ever had been. And so hopefully they can capitalize on that in the coming races. So that's okay, Bortoleto. We're still watching. Now we get to Liam Lawson. He qualified 16th. He finished 14th, so 0 points. He gained one spot pretty much, right? He gained a spot to finish 14th after getting caught out by a red flag on qualifying. So basically, he was in qualifying, and then the red flag kind of caused ruined his lap essentially of what probably was going to help him make it to Q1. So he, kind of just got messed up there. But all things considered, it was kind of the best result he kind of could have hoped for, really. He did say he was very disappointed. A lot of the safety cars disrupted their race, despite he felt the car had really good pace. But it was kind of the same story that we heard earlier, where feeling that like the car has good pace, but then other factors just kind of keep messing up your momentum, and you're constantly trying to play catch up. But he said he's just continued. He is focused on continuing to work hard and learning more about the car, and he's excited for Monaco because I think this will be the first time he's racing at Monaco ever. And now we get to the new rookie added to our list, Franco Colapinto. He qualified 15th. He finished 16th, so 0 points. Franco Colapinto had drama this weekend because he crashed during qualifying. So he crashed in Q2, so he made it to Q2, but he just crashed. Which is what led to that red flag and some of the drama that ended up happening after that. But despite that, he said he thought that the car has good pace, but everything was just kind of unlucky. I feel like every single midfield team is having the exact same story of we felt our cars had good pace, but the safety cars just sort of ruined everything for us and messed up their strategies and things like that. That was sort of what he had to say, but he's very excited to just keep on going. And he didn't seem too upset or too hung up on everything. I think he's just more or less like, it happened. I learned. I'm excited to still learn and move on. So Franco Colapinto, we will see how he continues to do throughout the season, whether it's 5 races or all of them. We now don't know the answer. Our last rookie, Fernando Alonso. Oh my goodness. He qualified 5th, finished 11th, so 0 points. Again, he felt that basically, when he was asked about it later after the race, he thought that the car was strong and the race was going well until the virtual safety car disrupted their chances. And without it, he thinks they would have been fighting for points. But basically, after the restart, they didn't have a chance because they didn't have any tires to go to. And I think that was what happened with a lot of the lower teams, was just because of having 2 safety cars, essentially, it just kind of ruined their momentum and their chance, because a lot of people plan to do 1 stops, and then when you have teams that have the tires, they're changing tires. It kind of just ruins your entire plan. So, it was a gamble in the first place to use the mediums, and it worked out in qualifying, and then unfortunately, that safety car really just, both of them kind of just messed everything up. So hopefully Alonso, we're going to get those points. I believe.
Optimistic.
I believe. But that is our rookie report. Woo. So with that, we will hop into our best and worst. My driver of the day, or my best, I'm giving to Lewis Hamilton. And it's not just because he is my favorite. I think him and Ferrari did a good job calling their strategy. And by the end of it, I'm like, there's Lewis. Mm-hmm. There he is. Watch the fuck out.
My driver of the day, I'm giving to Alex Albon for coming in P5 in a Williams and for how well he qualified. Very impressed by Alex. There was a point at which he was running P3, like a genuine P3, and it was a possibility, but ultimately just wasn't quite able to get there. But very strong race, did very well. And it was right at the very end. There was something with that happened with Charles.
Yeah, so Lando had gotten by. So at that point, it was Piastri, because it was the 1, 2, 3 was already kind of set at that point. Charles and him just sort of, they were racing hard, and it got to the point where Charles didn't mean to run him off the track, and that's what Alex had said. He didn't blame Charles or anything like that, but essentially that's what happened. And that is also what helped Lewis. He said, "See ya."
Yeah.
And so that's how he kind of got ahead of Alex, and he gets ahead of Charles, and then Charles had to give the position back a lap or 2 later, because if not, he was going to get a penalty, which would have ruined his points even more.
There was the potential he could have gotten a penalty, and if he had, it would have put him back, because everyone was in like a DRS train at one point. A lot of people were. They were so close together, he would have dropped several places back. So they were like, just to play it safe, not risk it.
I think that was the right thing to do. But no, Alex killed it.
Yeah, I loved Alex's whole performance. And I think he was very happy with how things went. And me and everybody else are like chomping at the bit, wanting him to get a podium so bad.
That was Ruth. Ruth's like, I wanted a podium for it. Because Alex was doing an interview during the post race. And I was like, yeah,
I'm like, I think I would I might squeak out a tear if Alex got a podium this season.
Honestly, it doesn't take a lot to make me tear up with anything like this. Because the second somebody performs well, and I'm like, oh, look how happy they are. Yeah. Like, honestly, yeah, I agree. My biggest letdown was just Aston Martin. I was very disappointed. I had really high hopes. Yeah, so I really want Fernando to get his points because this is just insane.
My biggest letdown was Fernando Alonso. Yeah. No points again.
And I said Aston Martin because I blame Aston Martin and not Fernando. Yes. But I'm like, that's my biggest letdown because I'm really just like, come on, man.
He's so close.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So, Fernando, we know you can do it. Come on, buddy. So now we'll hop into our next race teaser. It is Monaco. Woo! We have round 8, Circuit de Monaco, the Monaco Grand Prix. So last year's main race results, it was Charles, that's it. Yep. Yes. Where finally he broke the curse, and there he is, winning.
Still my phone background part of that picture is part of my phone background.
And so it was Charles, Oscar Piastri, and Carlos Sainz. Now, here is, sometimes we don't always have information going into the race because it's just like standard stuff. But with Monaco this year, they have changed it. So there will be a two mandatory pit stops. So you're going to have to stop twice.
You got to use at least 3 tire compounds, or all 3 tire compounds, I guess, right? Or
no, you have to use 3 different sets of tires, but still 2 tire compounds.
Okay, got it. I was wondering because I'm like, how are they going to?
Yeah, so basically you have to stop twice. And if you want to start on a hard, you could start on a hard, go to a medium, go to a soft. You could start on a hard, get a hard again, end on a medium, but you have to use 2 tire compounds unless it's rain. If it rains, you have to still stop twice, but you can't. I mean, you can only use your rain tires or whatever. So that's the only exception. So again, there will be 2 mandatory pit stops. All drivers must make at least 2 pit stops during the race. Drivers must use at least 3 different sets of tires during the race and 2 different tire compounds. And the reason they did it is because Monaco's boring.
And they have been tossing around different ideas of what they can do to make Monaco more interesting because part of what F1 is like the governing body of F1, part of their responsibility is to make the races entertaining for spectators. Yes. Like that's part of what they're charged with doing. So that's why they make certain rule and regulation changes. And that's why they made this one, is that Monaco is considered they call it a Saturday race, where basically the way you perform Saturday in qualifying almost entirely would dictate how you finished. It's basically you just go in circles and no one really passes each other. And because the cars are too big, the track is too narrow, and just the way that it is. And because it's a street circuit, so it's not a dedicated purpose-built track.
You can't widen it. They talked about trying to do that. There's really no feasible way to do that.
Yeah, they would have to do like construction to the city, like in terms of like buildings and moving things. And like that's a massive undertaking.
And it's like, no, it's just.
And it's like, so the 2 options are to solve this problem is to make the car smaller, which they are not. Starting with the new regulations in 2026, the cars are actually getting bigger.
I thought they were slightly smaller.
They're a little bit bigger. From what I remember, they're a little bit bigger. I could be wrong.
They're not. If they are smaller, it's not small enough.
It's like fractions of.
Yeah, it's not like small enough.
So or maybe it's the tires that are bigger. There's some aspect of it that's.
Because I thought the car was slightly smaller, but like not enough to matter.
So you would have to either make the car smaller, which is not happening anytime soon. You'd have to make the track bigger and wider for the cars to actually be able to pass each other. Yeah. Again, can't really do that here.
Yeah.
And the other option would be to make it a mandatory 2 pit stop minimum, which then, because that then forces different teams to make different strategies, and it adds interest to the race.
Yeah. And this is just specific to Monaco. It's not specific to all the other street circuits or anything. And they will be using the exact same tires they used this weekend at Imola. So the C6, C5, and C4. So it will be more. They didn't really get to gather that much data on the C6 tire because, again, Imola is a dedicated track. Monaco is a street circuit. So the wear and tear is going to be different. Tire degradation will be different. So it'll be interesting to see the data they're able to gather for that. And so, but anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. That wraps that up. And if you like this, or even if you didn't and you just want to leave a hate comment, that's fine. But if you could like, comment, and subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it. If there's anything that you want us to start talking about, let us know.
If you have a question, if you would like our input on anything, we're here to give it. It might not be right. You might not agree with it, but we'll give it.
If there's any questions that you don't feel like Googling yourself and you want us to talk about on here for you, let us know. Yeah. We are here to please, to a point. Anyway, we will talk at you next time. Bye. Bye.